Oh, because you don't, it's got to be frozen.
It's fun to go playing for an hour. Like if you could just take it out for a ride, it's great.
Oh, damn.
It's that's a Caterpillar grapple skidder.
It's $380,000.
And
That's what they cost.
we have another machine in the woods that cuts the trees and makes bunches. And then that machine backs up to the bunches and grabs them with the grapple, picks them up, and brings them to the staging area
Believe it or not, they're built like tanks.
to be
It's
processed.
still like a car. They're all
I'm a consulting forester with New England Forestry Consultants, and I was hired by the town of Lunenburg as their agent to both prepare forest management plans for over 2,000 acres in Lunenburg, and also to implement the forestry plan by setting up our first experimental project, timber harvest, on the small town forest right here in Lunenburg. So one of my jobs was to implement the plan and the harvest that we recommended for the small town forest by going out and identifying trees to harvest, send out a prospectus, a timber sale prospectus to prospective buyers of that timber, and our successful high bidder was Blanchflower Logging Incorporated, who is here today. Rick Blanchflower Sr., Ricky, and girlfriend Amanda are here, and they were the purchasers of the timber, and they did the operating here and did an outstanding, fantastic job in the woods. And very pleased to be able to show the benefits of active timber harvesting on conservation lands. And that's what we're here today, is to try to show you the benefits and the positive things that have come out of harvesting timber. One of the things that the management plan talks about is not only your timber resources, but your wildlife habitat, your biological diversity, your recreational opportunities, and all of these improvements were done through this harvest. Timber harvesting can be an emotional activity. You're going to have people who don't like it. You're going to have people who love it. And so what we wanted to do is to educate the public. We had pre-harvest, had a pre-harvest walk where we were able to show those who were interested what we were going to do, what the science was, why we were harvesting certain trees, and now we're doing a post-harvest follow-up on the property. So what I'd like to talk about are more or less the stages of the things that happen. One of the benefits was the revenue that has been generated from the harvest. The high bidder bid over $41,000 for the timber, so that is a financial benefit to the town. And the other benefits, we're going to talk about wildlife habitat, recreational opportunities are going to be discussed as we get into the property. One of the things that the Conservation Commission wanted to do was to provide some parking access. So what we were able to do, at basically no cost, was to cut a roughly 30 by 60 foot parking area that will eventually have to be graded, capped with gravel, but now we're going to have an opportunity for people to comfortably park. There was no parking here at this particular property, very small area that was being used for parking. One of the things that we're going to have to do is a gate will have to be installed, but temporarily we are going to take logs. As soon as the equipment is gone, they're going to put logs right on the hillside. Temporarily will block the access to any vehicles going to the back of the property. That's one of the things that you really don't want, is access for dumping. Those things are not a good thing. ATVs, we're trying to prohibit that as well at the recommendation of the Conservation Commission. So here we're going to have a nice upgraded parking area, with a nice gate that we'll be able to use for access in case of forest fire or whatever the emergencies. At least emergency vehicles will be able to enter the
Is this
property.
the parking area?
This will be.
This will be the parking
Yes.
area?
So really it needs to be graded. So the logger and the DPW came down, and what they wanted to keep mud out of the road as a public safety. A lot of this, what we call riprap, it's 6-inch minus stone that they wanted here so that when the trucks came through they weren't cutting mud into the road. And this will be graded, and my recommendation is to cap it with some type of gravel, stone dust, and it's going to be a very nice parking area. So I think we progressed. Now, this is the main truck road. One of the things that we wanted to do was keep the landing site not visible. And one of the reasons we chose this particular area is the timber harvest is about as far back as you can get from any residential views. Not that it's not okay to harvest around houses, but for the first initial stage, it was agreed upon that why don't we keep it as far back from any roads and public view as we can. So we kept the landing off of the main road, and we'll walk to the landing area. The landing area is where all the wood is pulled to, where it is processed, where it is loaded, and removed from the property. And that's where we're off to next.
Okay, Gary, just to point out or emphasize, first of all, it didn't cost the town anything to do this.
Right.
Because it's net proceeds out of the sale of the timber. The monies that become available to the town are actually going to go into the Conservation Commission coffers. And we're going to be using that money to essentially improve parking lots, put up trail markers. We have all sorts of pollinator gardens. We're going to be plowing the money back into our whole conservation program. And
Yeah, and that's a good point. The idea about harvesting trees is that your forest can be treated like a bank account. If you don't invest in it, it's not going to produce more over time. So in this particular case, it's like thinning carrots in your garden. If you're thinning them now, they're going to grow quicker, they're going to get bigger sooner, and you're able to utilize that revenue that those trees have in your forest, but you're improving the growth and the production of those high-quality trees into the future. So it's not a liquidation, it's not removing the best of what is here, it is trying to promote the growth and the quality of your timber resources over a period of time. And this was basically the theory behind this harvest was we had issues. We have a lot of hemlock, and it was infested with the hemlock woolly adelgid, and I'm going to show you the leaf, the egg sacs and in a very short period of time you would have had a forest full of dead hemlock, and there was a lot of hemlock. And hemlock has very low quality timber value, but we're able to utilize that timber resource, get paid for that resource, but yet remove it before it died, and then you have an ecological forest fire potential and aesthetic. It's just going to be a forest full of dead trees. Safety on trails, a lot of trees starting to come down, so we can walk through those areas as well. So we were able to identify those pockets that were infested with hemlock and remove them before they all died, and yet be able to get the value that those trees had today. If those trees had died and we had to come in and do a salvage, there would be no value. So we caught it just in about the right time. They were infested, they're not dead, they're on their way out, but we were able to capture the value of those trees. So, anything else? All right, let's go to the wood landing, the area where they brought all the wood. Talk more.
She's getting
I have to say, one question that I have, if we're able to make a loop, things like horseback riding, they need a place to be able to bring a trailer. So,
This isn't suitable to turn a truck around.
what, this whole area?
Up here,
I mean, to-
up here would be.
This is a
Let me just give you a quick overview of, so what happened here is in order to put a landing in, the initial road, the historic road comes right through here, and that's where, once the snow melts, the historical road comes up through here with the junction right up here on the other side of that pine tree. So all of this area that's now open was wooded, and we knew that we needed an area. You got to try to remember that a tree 75, 80 feet tall is got to be pulled into this area, and all the equipment, the chipper, the logs had to be stacked. So you need anywhere from 3/4 of an acre to an acre in order to process this wood. And so a lot of times in an undisturbed forest like this, this is actually what Fish and Game would look at as being a great patch cut for early successional wildlife habitat. What is going to happen here if there's not a parking lot? What's going to happen here is you're going to get a lot of young regeneration, young trees that are beneficial to different forms of wildlife. A lot of wildlife species depend on that low herbaceous vegetation, young trees for nesting. So it's going to be a little bit of a diverse pocket. The forest itself is mature. You don't have a real diversity in size classes. They're all big trees. This lot, when it was abandoned over 100 years ago, has never been managed. It has never seen the saw. So what you have is a mature, very dense forest where only certain wildlife species can live in. So by doing this, and by doing the harvest that we've done in the back of the lot, it's creating diversity of age classes, species types, which are going to be more beneficial to wildlife. Now, another wildlife note, this forest contains habitat for the protected Blanding's turtle. And Fish and Game, when they heard that we were going to be harvesting this, they were excited. Mass Fish and Wildlife was like, okay, well that's good, because the Blanding's turtle benefits from open pockets, particularly on sandy soils, near wetlands, for laying their eggs. And so they didn't have that opportunity. They may have that opportunity now in some of these wetland seeps and ponds, vernal pools, where they come out of in the spring. They'll be looking for these sandy sites to lay their eggs. They will have that opportunity now. We're actually doing a 8-acre patch cut in Shirley on the Pumpkin Brook just for the Blanding's turtle. And it's virtually a clear cut. We call it a patch cut. But we're cutting just about everything on a sandy soil to benefit this one turtle. So Fish and Game was very happy, excited. We were happy, excited that we can also benefit habitat for the Blanding's turtle. And we'll take a look at a few of those areas where I think it's going to be very helpful. Okay.
This whole place is full of big pieces of equipment. Real big pieces of equipment. Oh, yeah.
going to be flat. A lot of this is just ice that developed through the process of skidding over snow. As it rained, the ice built up. So this will all be very level when all the frost is gone. The only thing left to do through volunteers is just pick up sticks. They were all frozen in the ground, so we got out as many as we could. But at the end, there'll be a little bit of maintenance too.
So what about drainage? Is this, you didn't put any kind of camera in this?
No, well, what we did was in areas like down here, we diverted the water off. This area, water was running down here to begin with. If we couldn't put anything in while it's frozen, potentially if you had an excavator come down, we could put in some water bars so that the water could be diverted off to the side. But for the most part, it's going to be the same terrain that we had prior to the harvest. What we need to do is see how the water runs off when it's all melted. I think what you're seeing here is just a lot of runoff from the snow and the water.
This is a wet area, though.
Well, I mean,
historically.
There was runoff here
Right.
to keep it from completely washing out.
So the main draw-off is right over here, and you can see it funnels down.
That's the wetland area there.
So what we did was we just shot a canal off so that it's going to run off and not down the trail. But again, I think this is just you're seeing melt from snow, warm weather. Biggest thing is let it melt, let the frost go, and I think you're going to basically see the same terrain that you had prior to the harvest, because the road itself was not torn up. So basically the timber harvest starts from here and heads north to the to the boundary line, property line. Roughly 60 acres of timber harvesting. So this is basically what we call a bottleneck, where your skid trails start to take off. You have to put in trails, obviously main trails, to get your timber from the back of the lot to your wood landing. So it's kind of like a fishbone. You have main trails with secondary spurs off of them, so that everything funnels to one point. And you're going to have bottlenecks. So everything's coming through here, and you have trees that get banged up, and so you get these little openings. But one of the things that the property didn't have, it had one trail that went through the property, and now we have opportunities to make a loop trail where we didn't have before. So this trail that we're on will extend into the very northwest corner of the property, with an opportunity for our Trails Committee to connect it to the Cowdrey access point. So that's one of those recreational benefits where it didn't cost you. It didn't cost anyone to put in a trail to get around. You're going to have a little work to extend the trail from where we ended up the harvest to Mulpus Road. So
do you know how long that is about?
yeah, it's probably about 1,500 feet. Yep. So there's some work to be done there to create that remaining trail, but we've extended it over half of that, much longer than that, from here to that point. So that's one of those other added benefits. So as we walk through, and then the other thing on the trail, you'll see debris on areas that go to the original trails. Once that snow melts, then you're going to have some volunteers come up and just remove that material. A lot of it's just frozen into the ground. So once it all settles down, then you're going to have to do a little trail maintenance. That's nothing that the loggers are expected to do. They pulled out all the main material that needed to be pulled out, and you're going to get residual from the tops of trees that got busted up and ended up in a trail. So, but we try to keep these main trails open, and they did a very good job. You'll see some debris here and there, but they're not expected to come out and pick up 8-foot sticks or material that's just too small to pick up in the grapple itself. So yes, there is a little bit of work, trail work, that needs to be done by volunteers, etc.
I have a question.
Yes.
When volunteers are taking all of that debris, are they just expected to pile it or remove it? Or
I would
does
just
it not matter?
shuffle it to the side. Yep, just get it out of the, so it's not a safety hazard or...
We have been told in the past to try to put it in the brush in a pile for the little critters. I don't know if that's folklore, but that's what I've been told.
We were originally told, yes, to make sort of brush huts almost, because the animals like to live in those. So.
You got the time? Yep, absolutely. Go for it. I think so. It's probably a good idea. All right, so as we walk through, I won't, when I get to the point where I want to stop, I just want you to absorb it. You're going to see where trees have been cut, but also look at the trees that haven't been cut and their quality. And then we'll talk a little bit about the harvest when I get to the point where I want to get to.
Is there an infested hemlock tree that you could point out to us?
Yeah, I can show you branches.
So what that infestation is?
Yep, and we'll look at some trees that... So I didn't cut every hemlock. We didn't cut every hemlock. There were trees that looked like they had some viability. They looked very healthy. They probably have it, but even if they die, they become a wildlife snag tree. So, and that's the other thing is, you'll have trees that are dead that we don't cut. They have cavities. They're very beneficial to woodpeckers and wildlife nesting. So there may be some future wildlife trees. The hemlock trees that we left may die, but there's not so many of them that it becomes an environmental hazard on the property. So we'll talk about that when we get to the hemlock stands too. One other, I'll talk about it when I get there.
Does your little trail get you right into the Calgary? Yeah. Oh, okay. So any vehicle, we can create a big loop.
Right. Absolutely.
Sort of, you can imagine the heat of the trees. It's look up, it's so close.
Yeah, I don't know how much further we have to go.
Oh yeah, basically in the wintertime when you have a very thick overgrown forest and you don't have a lot of young growth, when we come in and cut, the deer are so starving in the winter, they eat the buds off the trees once they've been laid on the ground. And they come into the landing and they actually eat all the debris in front of the chipper and equipment every morning because they're so hungry they have no fear of human at that point where starvation takes over.
Nice. A lot of acorns.
And in a few years...
Oh, in a few years this is all going to grow back and they'll have great vegetation for them to sustain through the winter.
Deer are going to be thick.
Oh, they're going to be all over this place.
So I brought you to this spot just because it's one of my favorite spots in the lot. As you look around, obviously trees were cut, but what has been left is really what should catch your eye. It's high quality, straight, valuable red oak, saw timber, and trees that are developing into the future. Again, it's that thinning the carrots in your garden. We've removed a portion of the forest, maybe 25, 30, 40% of the volume, the density of this forest, in order to allow developing trees to continue to grow at an accelerated rate. The younger trees that are in the understory will be released and they'll start to grow. They'll start to get the sunlight that they now have in the gaps in the canopy, and you're going to get a third layer. Seedlings and saplings that develop from the acorn. We had a great acorn mast year for the last 2 years, so we're hoping that we turn some of those into the soil, and you're going to start to see within about 3-4 years a nice oak regeneration in the understory, provided the deer don't mow them down. So, but as you look through, now there's some hemlock here, but you see a lot of white pine that the loggers did a great job of releasing. The younger trees, anywhere from 6 to 12 feet high, and those trees are going to start to catch the sunlight, whereas if they didn't have that sunlight, they're just going to be suppressed and die. So we've kind of pushed the growth of trees in the sub-canopy, and we're also trying to regenerate a new forest. So I'd like to see 3 layers. We talk about uneven-aged forest management. It's the best forest management for wildlife management. So you got mature overstory with gaps in the canopy. You have intermediate-sized trees and regeneration that's already there. And then you're going to have that 3rd layer of seedlings and saplings. Once this starts to fill in, you're going to have that density that they need for nesting, wildlife. The deer will like the cover that it provides. Right now it's pretty open. That you're not going to see a lot of deer actually here during the day. They're going to be finding pockets that are more dense. One of the things that was very invasive but it's a beautiful species, is the mountain laurel. So you have mountain laurel through here, but it was so dense that it wasn't allowing trees to regenerate. But you still have pockets of it, so that when the spring comes, you're going to see that nice blossom coming off of the mountain laurel. So this is just one of my favorite spots. And what you didn't have before is a view of Watatic and Wachusett. And we're going to go look at that. You can see them in the distance now, and it's kind of neat. So we're going to go to the highest spot of the lot, right up here. Not a real great one. It's only part of the aesthetic. The last spot I want to show you is just the hemlock, the area that had the adelgid infestation. Not a real great one. It's only part of the aesthetic. The last spot I want to show you is just the hemlock, the area that had the adelgid infestation.
That's a beach, isn't it?
That's an American beach. Very good.
Whoa, Dogger.
So, for around here...
I get a prize for the hat?
I don't have a hat. Ask the Conservation Commission. They got a hat. They got a nice hat.
Yeah.
So, it's not rare to find them, but to find them in pockets like this is kind of unique. And they have a wildlife value in the H. beacorn, the beach acorn seed. So we left it. It was just one of those unique spots that you find. I mean, some foresters in New Hampshire would probably want to get rid of every one of them because you don't want your woodlot regenerating with beech. It's just a very low quality timber resource for the most part, just firewood pulp and very low grade saw logs. But it has aesthetic appeal. It has wildlife habitat beneficial. It's beneficial to wildlife habitat. And as you're walking through your trail, you look up and it's just that's nice. And so why cut it? So as much as forestry is a science, it's also an art. When you come out, and I'm the one there's a tree with paint that we didn't cut, and that's okay. Every now and then, a tree won't get cut. That's my artist, where I can't draw a picture, but I can paint trees, and that's my picture for the future. That's my legacy. And so I'm very excited about what happened here, and loggers did a great job. The last thing I'd like to show you... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the diversity must be good, too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just nice to have, so that you don't have a woodlot of just pine and oak, pine and oak, pine and oak. That's a nice break, and does have a different wildlife benefit.
It really has a different look, too.
Yeah, and you get that uncut mountain laurel in there. That's going to...
There's a lot of
That mountain laurel is going to get some sunlight. Not that you want a lot of mountain laurel, but it's going to be kind of pretty in there. It's going to be really...
protected
Protected?
in Massachusetts? Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, it's quite prevalent. It's everywhere. It's actually like a weed to a forester. It's, you don't...
Can you show us on the map where we're at?
Sure. So, we're roughly... I'm going to say right
That's the
Hold on a sec. Boom, boom. Okay, we're right in here, roughly, because the old trail ran up over here. So I'd say we're just down here a little bit, right in here. Right about in there.
And what are these delineate, those lines there?
Those are forest types.
Okay.
So there's HH hemlock, RO, red oak, white pine oak. All the white pine oak is over there. So what I'd like to, one last thing is show you the hemlock. So I can show you here. This is a hemlock tree that had the infested woolly adelgid in it. You see the little white egg sacs. That's where they overwinter, right there. Last few years have been very mild, and I have seen over the last 4 or 5 years that the adelgid has really blossomed. It's starting to. This year, the cold weather may kill some of it, keep it. I don't know. I'm not an entomologist, but I have noticed that with the warmer spells that we've had, you're getting. It's accelerated the presence of the adelgid, and so when we came out here, we had a hemlock stand up in here, and then we have one down here, and I'll show you. That's my last trip, was to show you the hemlock stand that we harvested, but we left some. And you'll actually see some tops that probably should have taken them, but you can see how they've been affected by the adelgid. They're really getting thin, but again,
How come you left them?
we left some just for diversity, and then if they didn't all live, the ones that we left, if they died, we just.
Won't it spread to these cultivars?
They pretty much all got it. That's the point. So
Pretty much all.
have it. They all have it.
Oh, they all have it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like you just try to leave some that maybe will make it, and hopefully they will. So.
Did you just migrate from the south? Where did you come from? Any idea?
Back when I first started, they had a quarantine. You couldn't take it out of the state, but now it's everywhere. But it started from the south, and it worked up. Do you remember the quarantine, Rick? Yep. You couldn't take it out of the state unless you took it to a specific mill. You had to have a permit. You couldn't stop with it. But it's everywhere now. I think it's going to be similar to Asian longhorn beetle. They have a quarantine on it now, but they can't. They're not going to stop it. They'll tell you they can. They're not going to stop it. It's going to spread. Yeah, it's just going to spread because of transportation. People can go everywhere, anywhere, and take it with them, and it's going to end up other places. So I just wanted to show you that hemlock stand, and then one tree that we looked at with the commission, kind of special. I'll show you that when we're done.
And what is it? You know what the name of it is?
In here was dominated by hemlock. Some of the trees that we cut in here exceeded 20 inches, 24 inches in diameter. Very big, large hemlock trees. Like a tree, that one that still has paint, we were really starting to lose the canopy. There, I only left the ones that I felt might have a chance, but they weren't being affected right now by the adelgid. I was trying to find some more that had a little bit more chlorotic needles in the canopy. Might be some more over there. But tried to leave some nice ones for diversity. We didn't want to take them all. So we'll have to monitor them. Now there's a hemlock that died. Did it die from hemlock woolly adelgid? I don't know. Yep, so those are two hemlock trees. Their canopies are okay. Those were all right. Those are the ones that I left. I'm just trying to find a real chlorotic one that we didn't cut, but I'm just not seeing one right here. We might be able to see some back as we go back.
So there's enough canopy on that. Put aside the disease. That tree will come back.
Which one?
This one right here.
Right here?
Yeah, that white, I guess that white pine, yeah.
Yeah, that white pine's in good shape.
Really?
Yeah, that's in good shape.
You hear that, Jack? Yeah.
I'm hearing it. I'm hearing it.
We've got one behind your house that got a little bit less than that.
Yeah, but Tom, yours is 3 times thick.
Oh, not that one. Oh, that one's bad. So you know that one in the back by your garage that we talked about?
Yeah.
Lost most of the canopy?
Yeah.
That's enough to keep it alive.
Here's one of the things that
Top third.
really impressed me about Blanchflower logging. We have trees, it was very tight. The trees are growing very closely together. They were able to cut and remove those trees without banging up the residual stem. When I say residual, the trees that remain. And now and then you get one that gets banged up, and sometimes we have to take out trees that get banged up. But as you look through, you don't see a lot of what we call basal scars. That degrades the tree. It opens a wound to the tree, and you get disease that gets in. It creates a hole, and the tree is susceptible to internal rot. Degrades the value of the future tree value, and could be a wind throw hazard in the years to come. So when you look out through there, you don't see basal scars, and that's what we're looking for. So that was expected of them. It was expected of me as we supervised the job, and I was very pleased with the results, and I hope the town of Lunenburg is as well. It was a really fun property to work on.
I say I've been looking at this when we came down originally and you showed us the blue trees. I was like, really? You know, how are they going to get in there and get that tree without wiping everything out? And I've been looking coming down through the skies. It's just wonderful to look.
Yeah. And that's the thing about logging. It's unavoidable that you're going to damage some trees at some time. But the idea is to minimize that and to protect that resource into the future. Because if you have the wrong people doing the wrong things, you can ruin your resource very quickly. And this was a well-done project, and I hope the town's proud of its management in the future and continues to practice good forestry. It's a multi-benefit thing that we've done here. We've generated revenue, we've provided great wildlife habitat, diversity of species, removed hemlock that was probably going to die anyway, left your forest full of dead trees and fire hazard, safety hazard. And we've been able to accomplish that. Now this forest will be left to grow for about 20 years. You're probably not going to come back and do any thinning for about 20 years, but these trees are going to grow. The older I get, when I go back and look at lots that I've done 20 years ago, hard to believe that you were in there 20 years ago. They grow. They grow. They really do. Aesthetically, it looks kind of messy right now. To me, it looks great. I love it. But over the period of time, it's going to soften up. It's going to brown up. Everything's going to kind of green up with new vegetation. And within about a 3-4 year period, you're going to have a lot of new trees, and the place is going to be totally different. It'll have that nice natural look to it when you come back in the years to come. So, if I can answer any other questions.
So the hemlocks are just going to be totally gone at some point?
Potentially. Potentially not. Some may make it. That, you know, maybe the life cycle of the insect. Now that we've taken out a lot of the insect, it went through the chipper, so they're gone. But the answer is I don't know. I wouldn't say I don't think that everything's going to go. A lot of times the young saplings, I'll notice that they don't have it. But if you cut the majority of them out around them, they might make it. They might make it up through. But I haven't seen yet just areas that are just completely decimated by mortality. But I am seeing the decline start to increase. Will that continue to increase in the area? Maybe. Will it subside? Maybe. Maybe the life cycle runs out. But we've kind of taken a step that rather than get the worst, we've prepared for the worst if it potentially happened. So.
Okay, everything got pulped, got burned for pine power, for recycle?
Good question. So there are basically 3 products that come out. Saw logs, they go to a sawmill, they get sawn into boards. Veneer, specialty products. Then you have and that's the high-quality material that's going out. The majority of the revenue that came from the saw logs that we sold for the town. The next product is firewood. It's a lower grade product, smaller diameter, but has value in the area for commercial firewood use. Rick, where'd you send the firewood? Yeah.
Well, there's only 48 cords.
Yeah.
The majority in the beginning of it was sent to Charlie Smith.
Okay.
The rest of it that was degraded and rotted went to the shipper.
Some of it went to pulp.
Pulp. Okay, so pulp for paper, that's another product. And then the other one is chips. So they have a chipper. It runs through the chipper, it goes into a chip van, and it goes from wood to energy. It's producing energy. So they went to Pine Tree in, nope, not Connecticut. So the chips were going to Connecticut. Loggers have different markets. I think Pine Tree is one. Concord, New Hampshire. What are some of the other? Portsmouth.
Reigate.
Yep.
And then you go up into Maine, which is way out.
Yep. So those are some of the products that came off of the property. So it's a commercial sale of forest products, and we're trying to utilize everything. So some loggers have great markets to different facilities, others don't. And so the guy who doesn't have a pulp market or a chip market, all they want is a saw log. So they come in, cut all the good stuff, and leave all the garbage. And so that's not what you want either. So, but that just may be their type of business. So Rick has an outlet for all of the forest products, and that's what we're looking for. We want to utilize as much of the tree as we possibly can. It's nice to have what we call woody debris left behind. What they'll say is a certain percentage of the top of the tree you want to stay in the woods for nutrient cycle. So if you remove the entire tree, you're removing a lot of the nutrient cycle the nutrients that go back into the forest soils. And most of the nutrients come from the tops of the trees, in the living branches and so forth. So a lot of it you'll see here. Now, it's a thinning, so a lot of the future nutrient cycle, the debris is going to come from the tops of the trees that remain in leaf litter. But if you came in here and eliminated the entire timber resource, you'd deplete your soils of a lot of the nutrients for the regeneration of trees. But we're only doing a thinning. Having them remove and chip trees is not going to have an impact on that nutrient cycle. So that's it.
And younger trees consume more carbon dioxide than older trees.
Yeah,
So it's a win there too.
Yeah, not big on that, but I don't know the details on that. But
they do.
Yeah.
41,000?
What was that, Paul?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
41,000.
41,000. 41 to us, or 35 to...
You got our percentage rate was 20%,
Okay.
and that included all your boundary works. Oh, that's another thing. So, one of the things that this property didn't have is the boundaries were not identified. So, part of our services were to locate and identify the property lines, and the eastern boundary was done by an abutting loaner. Had Rex Baker was the forester. He leaves little tags on his trees, so I saw that. But the entire north side and west side has not been glazed and painted yet until we got here. So in order to do this sale, we had to do a survey based on deed research and GPS work, and we were able to identify the entire northern section of the property. And I told Matt Morrow, I said, the area to the west, we need to do a little bit more deed research. So one of the other projects, some of the money that comes from the revenue of the sale may go towards completing that boundary identification on the west side of the property. And that's the whole process of the forest management program, is that timber revenue can go towards helping pay for some of the other things that are needed, and identified that we can help and assist as consulting foresters. So it's a win-win situation. If the town's able to benefit Certainly, we as practitioners, it's providing us an opportunity to work, and in the logging community, I call it a win-win situation, and that's what we're looking for. That's what we're hoping for.
Thank
Good
you very
job.
much.
Good job. Thank you.
Very educational.
Well done.
Thank you.
End of the loggers, congratulations. Well
Yeah, good work, guys.